Actress Diane Keaton has died in California. She was 79 years old. Keaton's family made the announcement but did not specify a cause.
Actress Diane Keaton has died in California. She was 79 years old. The family made the announcement but remained silent on the cause. The media reported pneumonia, a simple, clean conclusion that left no questions unanswered. But that's not what the last doctor who touched her body confirmed. He witnessed something inside her that defied explanation, a biological phenomenon unlike anything he'd seen in 30 years of medical practice, a reaction pattern recorded in a report that disappeared just hours after completion. From that moment, Diane Keaton's passing transformed from a routine medical case into the greatest mystery Cedars-Sinai Hospital has ever concealed. In Los Angeles medical circles, that night is still spoken of in whispers. A doctor lost his career, a file vanished without a trace, and a scientific conclusion was replaced with two simple words: bacterial pneumonia. What did the doctor discover inside her body? And why did he warn that the truth would haunt the world forever? Before we unravel Diane Keaton's final secret, prepare yourself. What you're about to learn may fundamentally change how you understand the human body and what happens when decades of medical interventions, hidden illnesses, and environmental factors converge in ways science has never documented. Los Angeles, early morning, October 12, 2025. The western sky still held a thin layer of mist. Streetlights shimmered like the lingering breath of a night not yet surrendered to dawn. Deep in the basement of Cedars-Sinai Hospital, the autopsy room lay silent, illuminated only by the cold gleam of fluorescent light reflecting off stainless steel. On the examination table lay a body completely covered by a thin white sheet. The clock outside the door showed 12:48 a.m., frozen in time. The air hung thick and heavy, almost crystallized. Every sound disappeared into the void except for the slow, methodical scratch of a pen against paper. The lead forensic doctor on duty sat motionless beside the table, his eyes fixed on blood test results and lung tissue images on the screen before him. The pale blue light cast harsh shadows across his tired face. According to standard procedure, this examination was merely a formality to confirm the cause of death. The death certificate had already been signed less than 7 hours earlier. Primary bacterial pneumonia, no other contributing conditions. A clean, concise, unquestionable conclusion. But what kept the doctor transfixed wasn't doubt. It was the disturbing reality that the numbers on his screen bore no resemblance to any pneumonia case he had encountered in 30 years of practice. The body before him belonged to Diane Keaton, 79 years old, the legendary actress from Annie Hall and The Godfather, an American cinema icon spanning more than 3 decades. Before her death, her health appeared stable. She still took morning walks with her 2 dogs, still posted photos on Instagram, still called her daughter in New York every Sunday morning. Her sudden passing from pneumonia seemed implausible at best. When the white sheet was finally lifted, the room fell into deeper silence. A pale silver mark appeared on her left shoulder, approximately 7 centimeters long, flat, cold, and waxy to the touch. There was no bruising, no surgical scar pattern, no injection site. Under direct light, the skin reflected an odd shimmer, faintly coated as if with a thin layer of keratin. Looks more like tissue regeneration than necrosis, one technician whispered, his voice swallowed by the constant hum of the air ventilation system. The colleague beside him made a subtle gesture for silence. Upon closer inspection, they discovered small scaly lesions scattered across her neck and shoulder, the same area where Diane had undergone surgery to remove squamous cell carcinoma in the late 1980s. Under the microscope, the skin tissue showed a strange inflammatory response. The cells weren't dying but seemed to be misfiring like an old system attempting to restart unexpectedly. Abnormal cellular activation, the doctor wrote in a preliminary note. An hour later, that notation vanished from the official documentation. When they opened the lungs, the tissue presented nothing like the typical profile of bacterial pneumonia. The coloration between the 2 lobes was distinctly unusual. Not the bright red of inflammation, not the dull gray of infection, but a faint pink that none of the team had encountered before. Under blue light, certain tissue spots emitted a soft glow suggesting endogenous enzyme activity, something typically seen only in living cells. The young endoscopist observing the procedure whispered, "It's like the body is still trying to heal itself." No one acknowledged her comment. In the forensic notebook, a single pencil-scribbled line remained, reaction pattern does not correspond with bacterial spread, possible autoimmune response. A brief notation, yet profound enough to make the entire team pause in contemplation. According to the Los Angeles Times, Diane Keaton's tissue samples were sealed that night for transfer to Cedars-Sinai's pathology lab. But just as the preliminary analysis was about to be uploaded to the hospital system, the entire report inexplicably vanished. The hospital's internal server went offline for 45 minutes. No one could identify the cause. Marissa Lott, a nurse on the night shift, later told ABC Local News, "We were ready to send the report, but when we checked the file, it was empty. Only the patient's name and timestamp remained." The chief doctor stepped out, remained silent for several minutes, then simply stated, "Don't include that part in the record." He made no eye contact, offered no explanation, and promptly left. The following morning, the entire pathology system was locked down. The forensic team received an internal email instructing them to suspend all data communication immediately. 2 technicians were reassigned to different departments. Everyone else was required to sign strict confidentiality agreements. The story might have ended there, buried under hospital bureaucracy and professional silence. But Deadline Hollywood later revealed that the original report had noted something even more disturbing. Diane Keaton's body temperature had not decreased following normal physiological progression. In elderly individuals, body temperature typically drops rapidly within the first 2 hours after death. But with Diane, it remained at 33 degrees Celsius even after 5 hours, an exceedingly rare phenomenon. Forensic experts refer to this as delayed enzyme reaction, typically observed only in severe autoimmune or metabolic irregularities. Before this finding could be verified independently, all related data was marked family confidential. When journalists from People and Variety inquired, the Cedars-Sinai spokesperson simply replied, "No cause of death other than pneumonia has been identified. We respect the family's privacy during this difficult time." But in Los Angeles, rumors spread faster than light. A dermatologist who had treated Keaton years earlier suggested an autoimmune reaction might have caused her lungs to be attacked by her own immune cells. Another doctor noted the skin texture on her shoulder matched tissue exposed to intense ultraviolet light, implying lingering side effects from the phototherapy Diane had undergone for years. A whispered detail among medical professionals made the story even more perplexing. In 2024, Diane Keaton had participated in a small UCLA study examining immune system changes in former skin cancer patients. That report was never published. From Cedars-Sinai's basement, information began to leak in fragments. Major networks, CNN Entertainment, NBC News, and ABC7 all ran evening segments on October 13th with identical messaging. Actress Diane Keaton passes away peacefully from pneumonia. Not one mentioned the silver mark, the data lockout, or the missing tissue samples. 3 days later, the lead forensic doctor who handled the autopsy resigned from his position. At his brief farewell gathering, he made only one statement. According to a colleague later quoted by The Hollywood Reporter, he said simply, "That body didn't entirely belong to any pathology I've ever known." That night, Diane Keaton's entire file disappeared from Cedars-Sinai's system. No statements, no explanations, only scattered notes, deleted messages, and hushed conversations drifting through Beverly Grove cafes where young medical residents still wonder was what they witnessed that night the body's final reaction, or something else being deliberately concealed. That question, like the silver shimmer on her shoulder, remains an unsolved mystery. From there, medical professionals began quietly revisiting Diane Keaton's health records, not to dispute the official death certificate but to search for the undocumented illnesses, the subtle traces that may have led her body to the outer boundaries of medical understanding. The story began more than half a century earlier in a Hollywood that had not yet learned the concept of protection. In 1970, Diane Keaton was in her early 20s, a fresh face emerging from Broadway onto the silver screen. She had no way of knowing that a routine checkup would mark the first dark milestone in her medical history. The doctor discovered a small dark spot on her right temple, which initially appeared to be nothing more than makeup residue. But the biopsy results came back with brutal clarity: basal cell carcinoma, skin cancer. Hollywood in that era knew nothing about sunscreen or safe lighting practices. Actors routinely stood for hours under blazing halogen lamps, sweat and makeup blending in the relentless heat. Diane was no exception to this industry standard. One surgery on her shoulder, followed by another on her cheek, left faint but permanent scars on her face. For an actress scrutinized in every close-up, these minor imperfections became a psychological burden. After the operations, Diane developed an intense fear of light. She covered her neck, wore gloves, and donned wide-brimmed hats even indoors. Family members later revealed that throughout the 1980s, she almost never ventured outside during midday hours. A Beverly Hills dermatologist once remarked that her skin reacted to sunlight like that of a newborn. Just a few minutes of exposure could result in severe burns. The cancer eventually subsided but never truly disappeared from her life. In later years, Keaton underwent multiple phototherapy sessions, treatments using controlled ultraviolet light to prevent recurrence. These procedures kept her skin smooth but made her cells permanently light-sensitive. Half a century later, when her body arrived at Cedars-Sinai's examination room, the evidence remained. On her left shoulder, doctors found tissue with a keratinized structure identical to early squamous lesions. Under microscopic examination, they found no bacteria, no necrosis. Instead, the cells appeared to be reactivating, behaving in highly unusual patterns. In an internal draft report, the examining endoscopist wrote one short but profound observation: "Cannot confirm malignancy, but cannot rule it out either." The statement sounds clinically vague, but those in medicine understood its significance. It perfectly described Diane Keaton's body itself, perpetually poised between recovery and decline, between life and breakdown. Those who encountered her in her final year all reported the same observation. Diane had changed dramatically. In photos taken at her Los Angeles home, her skin appeared almost translucent, pale, reflecting light like silver foil. Her manager revealed she wore gloves even indoors because the air itself hurt her skin. A UCLA dermatologist who reviewed these images suggested hypersensitivity to light, a reaction typically associated with immune system disorders following prolonged ultraviolet exposure. But the story extended beyond her skin condition. In her memoir, Then Again, Keaton admitted that at age 25 she suffered from bulimia nervosa, a disorder that silently damaged her body for years. "I ate to fill emptiness, then punished myself," she wrote. For 5 years she lived in a cycle of guilt, hidden behind Annie Hall's charming facade. When Hollywood glorified extreme thinness, Keaton was among the first to speak openly about that destructive pressure. Medical professionals now understand that bulimia doesn't just harm teeth and the digestive system, it leaves lasting scars on the nervous and immune systems. A UCLA geriatric specialist explained in the Los Angeles Medical Review, "Those with a history of bulimia may experience accelerated deterioration during respiratory infections. They typically respond poorly to antibiotics and face higher risks of lung complications." Public medical records show that in 2023, Diane was briefly hospitalized for prolonged acute bronchitis, yet recovered with surprising speed. Months later, her breathing weakened significantly, requiring nighttime oxygen support. Despite this, at film premieres and fashion events, she appeared radiant, occasionally coughing but deflecting health-related questions with practiced ease. "It's just a mild cold," she would say with a stiff smile that never quite reached her eyes. During the autopsy, her lungs revealed tiny erosions and enlarged vessels, classic signs of tissue repeatedly damaged and healed over time. One doctor later commented, "Her body appeared to have fought for too long, not just against illness, but against itself." Though the official report listed pneumonia as the cause, no one who examined those lungs truly believed infection alone had caused her passing. It seemed more as if her body had simply exhausted its strength, like a machine overworked for half a century. The most disputed element appeared in the final section of the preliminary report. A sample from the right middle lung lobe was tagged with a brief but alarming notation: "Foreign cell clusters detected. Unidentifiable origin." These words never appeared in any public record. They surfaced only through a leaked screenshot shared among hospital staff. A laboratory technician later revealed the sample disappeared from the system 3 days after being logged. No copies remained, no signatures to trace. CBS News quoted an anonymous source stating that the supervising pathologist voluntarily resigned that weekend. When contacted for comment, he replied briefly by email, "Some bodily reactions defy medical description. I'm not allowed to discuss the matter further." Medical experts later told Vanity Fair that foreign cell clusters might refer to an extremely rare autoimmune misfire where lung cells reconfigure their genetic sequence, causing the immune system to fail to recognize them as native tissue. Some studies at Stanford University had documented similar phenomena, but never in elderly patients. Strangely, when questioned, Cedars-Sinai representatives insisted no samples had been lost, but refused to release storage codes or chain of custody documentation. In medical circles, this kind of institutional silence is more concerning than any definitive answer. A doctor who had treated Diane quietly told Vanity Fair, "Her body reacted as if it was still resisting, as if it didn't want to stop." That statement created an uncomfortable silence because the deeper one examined her records, the clearer it seemed that Diane Keaton's body hadn't simply surrendered according to nature's course. It had struggled to endure, to regenerate, to continue in a way medical science cannot yet fully comprehend. With her complex medical history from skin cancer and immune reactions to long-hidden disorders, Diane Keaton's passing was anything but peaceful. It became an unresolved enigma in medicine, a cascade of mysterious biological responses that could only be observed, not definitively explained. Some doctors maintain it was simply age-related deterioration. But in the vanished files and sealed samples, something more profound remains. Something that leads many to believe that perhaps Diane Keaton didn't simply succumb to illness, but rather her body created an ending no one could adequately explain. From these unanswered questions, new theories emerged from UCLA laboratories to hushed conversations in hospital corridors about what truly happened inside Diane Keaton's body, theories that even now few dare to articulate openly. After the examination concluded, Cedars-Sinai maintained absolute silence. No statements, no press conferences, no additional notes added to the medical file. 3 days later, every newspaper printed identical language word for word: cause of death, bacterial pneumonia, a clean, polished conclusion as if everything witnessed was nothing more than standard procedure. But within Los Angeles's medical community, that silence felt colder than the news of death itself. A doctor who participated in the tissue analysis quietly told The Guardian, "The indications on her body didn't match ordinary pneumonia. There was something else, something beyond traditional medical description." Those words, barely audible amid the flood of obituary reports, became the catalyst for unspoken theories among those who had accessed Keaton's file. Gradually, across hospital corridors and cafes near Beverly Grove, 3 distinct theories circulated, like fragments of a puzzle no one wished to complete. The first theory suggested a delayed autoimmune reaction, a rare disorder in which the immune system turns against the body itself. According to a leaked report from UCLA's laboratory in her final days, Diane Keaton showed signs resembling a condition known as autoimmune pulmonary necrosis, lung tissue breaking down from within without the presence of bacteria or viruses. In this scenario, her lung tissue was attacked by her own white blood cells, causing rapid respiratory failure without external infection. A resident doctor told Variety Health, "It collapsed without warning. No fever, no pain, no swelling, no skin damage. All vital signs simply fell into free fall." During her last 24 hours, Diane remained fully conscious. She talked, read news on her iPad, and even smiled while watching an old interview of herself. But her blood oxygen levels dropped unpredictably, her pulse weakened, and her heartbeat became increasingly irregular. Many experts believe this cascade reaction could have resulted from decades of treatments, strict diets, light exposure, and immune-stimulating medications, a UCLA researcher observed. Her body resembled a system that had fought too long. That defense mechanism once saved her from illness, but eventually turned inward and began to destroy everything. The final photographs of Diane taken at her Beverly Hills home in September 2025 became images few wished to revisit. A hollow face, skin stretched thin as paper, deeply sunken eyes. No medical professional would mistake this for the appearance of someone suffering from pneumonia. A respiratory specialist concluded it displayed the distinct characteristics of late-stage immune failure, when the body deteriorates, but the mind remains painfully clear. The second theory reached further back in time, to 40 years earlier, when Diane Keaton stood at the height of her career and still believed that light could heal rather than harm. In 1981, she underwent phototherapy for basal cell skin cancer, an experimental method promoted as Hollywood's aesthetic miracle cure. According to records from the California Institute of Dermatology, Diane completed at least 7 high-intensity ultraviolet sessions over 2 years. Each time she lay motionless beneath white-blue lights, her skin coated with a specialized photosensitive solution, her body burning with heat. A treating physician recalled to Los Angeles Medical Review, "She reacted very strongly from the first session. Her skin turned bright red, blistered severely, but she insisted on continuing. She said, "If it can save me from visible scars, I can endure it." She did recover, at least in the public eye. But that light-based treatment, like a double-edged sword, left behind subtle genetic alterations that no one could measure at the time. More than 4 decades later, a research group at Stanford discovered a phenomenon called photomutation, a form of DNA disruption caused by ultraviolet accumulation in tissue that could theoretically travel through the bloodstream to other organs, including the lungs. Coincidentally, Diane had participated in a UCLA study on immune changes in former skin cancer patients just a year before her death. The findings were never released to the public. An anonymous pathology technician told NBC News, "Her lung cells reacted like skin tissue once exposed to light, as if her body somehow maintained a cellular memory of that exposure." That detail, seemingly impossible, aligned eerily with the autopsy record. Her lung tissue had glowed faintly under blue light, what medical professionals term bioluminescent residue, a lingering photochemical response within the cells. If accurate, then light had not only once saved Diane Keaton but had returned decades later to claim her final breath. The third theory, seemingly the most practical yet hardest to prove, involved a complex metabolic drug reaction. According to Cedars-Sinai's treatment records, during her final week, Diane received a prescription for a broad-spectrum antibiotic, yet blood tests revealed an extremely low concentration in her system, almost non-existent. Specialists believe this resulted directly from the digestive disorder she had suffered for 5 years in her 20s. The prolonged imbalance had permanently damaged her body's ability to properly absorb medication. When drugs aren't adequately processed, they can trigger unusual chemical reactions in the bloodstream, producing rare toxic compounds. A pharmacist at Cedars-Sinai told The Hollywood Reporter her plasma sample showed alarmingly elevated lactate levels, as if her body was manufacturing its own toxins. In those last weeks, Diane changed noticeably. Her voice grew softer, her skin paler, her hands perpetually cold. A photographer who encountered her at an art exhibition in Westwood recalled, "She walked slowly, somewhat unsteadily, but still smiled when the camera turned toward her. She didn't appear sick exactly, just faded, as if she was gradually disappearing." Doctors termed it end-stage metabolic reversal. When the body turns against its own processes, medicine ceases to heal and instead becomes an adversary. And the immune system, after a lifetime of battle, no longer recognizes what to protect. All 3 theories, autoimmune reaction, light after effects, and drug metabolism failure, could be valid explanations or all could be incorrect. But what they shared was their conspicuous absence from the official record. No one dared to confirm, and no one wanted to face further questioning. A forensic doctor present during the examination quietly told ABC Local News, "Some cases in medicine are better left undisturbed. Her body was one of them." When he spoke those words, his voice trembled, not from fear, but from profound exhaustion. Because perhaps he too sensed that under the silent white lights of that hospital that night, Diane Keaton might have appeared to depart peacefully. Yet what remained on her body was anything but peace. It was the final testament of a body that had fought throughout its existence, where every cell seemed to hold memories of light, medicine, and fear. To truly understand Diane Keaton's death, one must look beyond the hospital walls, beyond medical theories and clinical reports, and return to where she lived, a quiet house in Los Angeles, where sunlight rarely penetrated the curtains, where a woman who never married learned to navigate life alone with her private fears. It was there that Diane Keaton's real secret might still be waiting to be revealed. In 2025, when the world learned of Diane Keaton's passing, Hollywood's lights continued to shine brilliantly, yet something quietly dimmed beneath that glittering surface. Television, online media, and social networks uniformly referred to her as Hollywood's Queen of the Wide-Brimmed Hat. The phrase sounded elegant, yet somehow distant, like a polite farewell to a legend long past her prime. But for those who truly knew her, the death wasn't unexpected. They whispered that Diane Keaton had been gradually leaving this world for a long time. The public had simply failed to notice. Her red brick home stood tucked away on a quiet street in Brentwood, West Los Angeles, surrounded by ancient oak trees. The gray wooden gate remained closed almost year-round. Neighbors reported rarely seeing her, perhaps only that familiar silhouette each morning, a slender figure in a long-sleeved shirt, leather gloves, a distinctive white wide-brimmed hat, and two small dogs, Reggie and Clover, circling protectively around her feet. She walked slowly, taking measured steps, as if avoiding sunlight rather than enjoying the morning air. Inside the house, according to Architectural Digest, everything was meticulously arranged, yet somehow coldly impersonal. No television, no music system, no fresh flowers, only wooden bookshelves filled with notebooks, a piano positioned beside heavily curtained windows, and black and white photographs covering the walls. Among those images were faces from her past: Woody Allen, Warren Beatty, Al Pacino. Under the dim yellow lighting, those old frames resembled memories refusing to settle into history. Woody Allen was the first to show her how to find laughter in darkness. In 1970, they met at the audition for Play It Again, Sam. Diane, tall and slender with an infectious laugh, simultaneously awkward and charming. Allen was captivated by that unique eccentricity. They fell in love quickly, sharing a small Upper East Side apartment in New York, surrounded by books, jazz records, and half-empty coffee cups, the artifacts of a 3-year romance. In Allen's perspective, Diane was the only person who convinced him that intelligence and playful silliness could coexist harmoniously. After their breakup, they continued working together professionally, and then Annie Hall was born. The film that introduced America to Diane Keaton's singular presence. The character Annie was transparently based on Diane herself. From that point forward, Keaton became inseparable from Woody Allen's artistic shadow. When Allen later faced serious controversies, questions inevitably returned to Diane. She chose measured silence. "I'm not defending anyone," she stated on CBS Sunday Morning in 20. "I just don't want to add darkness to memories that were once beautiful." Her voice remained quiet but resolute. Following that interview, Diane withdrew almost completely from media engagements. Warren Beatty represented another chapter in her life, a passionate, tumultuous period. They connected on the set of Reds in 19. Beatty, then Hollywood's brightest star, possessed a magnetic presence that colleagues claimed could captivate anyone with a mere glance. But Diane never succumbed easily to charm. They argued intensely, laughed deeply, then argued again. Beatty, renowned for his perfectionism, demanded countless retakes for seemingly minor details. After each day's filming concluded, they remained in the editing room for hours, discussing politics, philosophy, and the peculiar loneliness that accompanies extraordinary success. When Reds won the Academy Award in 1982, they separated without public explanation. Sources close to Diane reported she couldn't sleep properly afterward. She read until dawn, substituted coffee for water, and immersed herself in work as if silence might consume her otherwise. A psychologist told the Los Angeles Times, "People experiencing chronic stress often suffer immune system decline. For someone with pre-existing skin disorders, it creates a dangerous catalyst." Perhaps during those years, Diane's body began developing the invisible fractures that medicine would only later recognize. Then came Al Pacino. They first met during The Godfather in 1972. But nearly 2 decades later, during The Godfather Part 3, they formed a deeper connection. By then, Pacino was a living legend and Diane an established icon. They became lovers, soulmates, and artistic rivals simultaneously. She once described it as the most beautiful yet exhausting relationship of my life. When she expressed desire for marriage, Pacino declined. She departed quietly, harboring no apparent resentment. "I wanted to learn to love myself completely," she later explained before adopting 2 children, Dexter and Duke, independently. From that point forward, Keaton officially embraced solitude as her chosen path. Pacino reportedly still called her every year on her birthday. The final call in September 2025 lasted barely 3 minutes. "I'm fine," she assured him softly. "It's just that the light feels too bright lately." Her voice sounded gentle, steady, not sad but profoundly weary. Pacino later confided that he remained silent throughout most of the call, sensing he was communicating with someone already distant, already on the other side of some invisible threshold. Since 2021, Diane had virtually disappeared from Hollywood circles. No awards ceremonies, no talk show appearances, only occasional appearances at friends' photography exhibitions. She maintained her distinctive style: white hat, high-collared shirt, black gloves. Many fashion writers called it the Keaton aesthetic, but medical professionals recognized the practical necessity behind the choices. A Beverly Hills dermatologist noted her skin had become so thin and sensitive that even moderate indoor lighting caused discomfort. She avoided daytime activities entirely, working only at night. All professional communication occurred through email or text messages. In 2023, she sold 2 valuable properties in Malibu and Santa Barbara, retaining only the house in Brentwood. Most of the nearly $10 million rent proceeds went to the Los Angeles Conservancy for Architectural Preservation, her lifelong passion beyond acting. A close friend revealed that in her final months, Diane developed increasingly particular habits. She shortened her curtains to prevent light from reflecting on the floor, removed all mirrors from her bedroom, and maintained her home temperature at a consistent 8. She explained simply, "The colder it is, the easier I can breathe." Her loved ones expressed concern, but Diane always responded with her characteristic smile, saying she was merely tidying up the light in her life. In August 2025, she unexpectedly drafted a new will, leaving the majority of her estate to her 2 children and establishing a substantial skin cancer research fund. In a handwritten note to an old friend in New York, she wrote, "I've lived close to light for too long. Now I want to discover if there's peace in the darkness." Those who visited during her final week reported she remained lucid, cheerful, still smiling. But they also noted that Diane's voice had never sounded lighter, as if her breath had grown progressively thinner with time. A close friend told People magazine she seemed to be fading away, not from illness specifically, but from some internal decision. She appeared to want departure while everything remained intact. Strangely, despite her increasing isolation, Diane Keaton never displayed bitterness. She maintained her distinctive wit, continued writing thank you notes to fans, still captured morning photographs, "Just to remember that I existed in this moment," she explained to Vanity Fair in what would become her final interview. Perhaps that explains why when Diane passed, many believed she hadn't left because of illness alone, but through some form of conscious choice. Her body ceased functioning precisely when the light that had defined her entire existence became too intense to bear. At that moment, media coverage erupted across platforms. From Los Angeles to New York, countless headlines posed variations of the same essential question: was Diane Keaton's death truly attributable to something as commonplace as pneumonia? Because in a world where every medical record carries an official seal and every definitive answer remains securely locked away, it's invariably the quietest questions that people continue searching to resolve. Perhaps Diane Keaton's ultimate secret will never appear in any medical file. The missing tissue samples, the erased notations, the whispered recollections, all continue to echo between 2 realms, where science reaches its boundaries and where belief in the unexplained begins. Her physical form may have ceased functioning, but the mystery contained within it lives on, silent and persistent, like the final shimmer of light reflecting off the white sheet that covered her that night. What do you believe truly happened to Diane Keaton? The silver mark on her shoulder, the glowing tissues, the doctor who lost his career for speaking truth, these elements form a medical mystery that continues to haunt those who witnessed it firsthand. Some secrets aren't meant for public consumption. Some bodies tell stories that science isn't yet prepared to hear. And sometimes the most profound mysteries are those that force us to question not just how we die, but how we've lived in relation to the forces that ultimately reclaim us. The light that once illuminated Diane Keaton's remarkable life may have finally grown too intense. Or perhaps, after decades of running from its touch, she finally turned to face it directly, and in that moment, discovered something beyond medical explanation. The truth, like the silver mark itself, continues to shimmer just beyond our grasp,